So today I want to talk about something that's super important if you have a corporation or an LLC. Now, when you file the company with the state, you get Articles of Incorporation or Articles of Organization, they call it with an LLC, which basically says you've paid the fee to the state. The state's given you that name. They're going to protect that name. That's you in that state where you filed. Super important. The state gives you that. Then the state assumes that you're going to create some rules of engagement around how this business is going to operate. Those rules of engagement that theoretically you created. In a corporation, they're called the bylaws. And in an LLC, they're called the operating agreement. So basically, this is how are we going to do stuff in this business, in this company? Because more people have LLCs these days than corporations. I'm going to use operating agreement pretty much as I go through these thoughts for you. But know that there's an equivalency in corporations that's called the bylaws. You may even be more familiar with the term bylaws because corporations have been around for so many hundreds of years. But 75% of the companies that are being set up these days are LLCs. So I'm just going to use the vernacular of an LLC and call it an operating agreement. The operating agreement is the rules and the kind of acknowledged and accepted procedures that the founders of this company are saying, this is how we're going to do it. Now, in reality, if you went and filed with the Secretary of State on your own, you just did it yourself, you filed, you got your Articles of Organization back from the state. You don't have a minute book, probably. You don't have an operating agreement, almost certainly. All you've done is basically buy a ticket to the fair without ever walking into the fair. You've paid your fee, but you haven't done the work yet. Okay. The operating agreement says you're doing the work. And by the way, if you get sued or audited, they're going to want to see your operating agreement or your bylaws. So don't think because the state didn't give it to you that it's not important. It's critically important. As a matter of fact, it is the rules by which the company will operate. So you need one. If you don't have one, write to me, Aaron Young at Laughlin USA, and we'll make sure you can get an operating agreement. It's inexpensive. Most of them are boilerplate. Most of them are generally the same. That basically says the business was set up, it's going to operate from this address, and it can do any sort of legal, lawful business. That's what most of them say. As you get into situations where you have multiple owners, where you have maybe investors that are coming in and so on, you very often are going to need a better operating agreement that specifically speaks to how you're going to handle investors. If there are different rounds of financing, maybe you've got an A, B, and C round, or a friends and family round and an A round because you raised money. If there's going to be a buy-sell agreement between the owners, you want to get all that into the operating agreement because the operating agreement is what's going to be the main thing the judge is going to look at. If there's a lawsuit, if there's a business divorce where you and your partners decide to go different ways. If there's going to be a dissolution of the company, you're going to close it down, but there's still debts that are owed, or you're trying to divvy up the stuff in the company. The place that you're going to go to decide what did we agree on is primarily going to be in the operating agreement. If you and somebody else are going to go into business together, you want to go back and get a lawyer to rewrite your operating agreement so it's not boilerplate, but it's fitting the new circumstance with you and another owner or multiple owners. It's important to use legal resources to write it. Now, little money-saving tip right here. Before you go to the lawyer, get with the other partner or the several partners and negotiate together and write down what you're agreeing on. These are the bullet points. We've agreed to this, and this. There will be a buy-sell agreement, and these will be the terms of the buy-sell agreement. There will be this person's coming in with money, and even though they're coming in with most of the money, they're still a minority member versus the person with the idea and going to do the work is going to be the majority owner. But we are going to allow, until the company hits a certain level of profitability, the person who brought all the money in to take some or all of the losses of the company in the first couple of years. Based on these rules, this is how we're going to do it. And the cool thing is if you lay out the rules and then the lawyer organizes the rules into legal a legal document that meets the standards of the state's laws, then you guys can just go and operate in the way you want it to. Nobody's telling you what to do. You get to make the rules. But if you don't make the rules, the state will enforce rules upon you based on what they think is standard. And I promise you, what the state thinks and what you actually want are very often going to be in conflict with one another. So get with the owners, get with you and the other owners, figure out what you guys want to do with this company, what the rules are going to be, create a document that's the bullet point agreement, sign that so that everybody's agreeing, then go to the company's lawyer, have the lawyer create the operating agreement. That's what you do if you have more than one owner. Also, by the way, I said buy-sell agreements a minute ago. I can't overstate the importance of a buy-sell agreement, and often also having buy-sell or really key person insurance, so that if one of the people is disabled or dies, that person's estate can be bought out because of insurance. So you don't end up with new partners you never wanted to have. Somebody's kid or spouse or whatever all of a sudden is coming in and making new demands on the company. The easiest way to deal with that is to have Keyman Insurance that is in balance with what the ownership stake is of that individual. And if that person were to die, and believe me, I've been in business long enough, people die. Sometimes you're doing business with, they die. You want to have an easy way to buy out their ownership, buy out their estate, keep control with the people that have been involved from the beginning, and let those people have their exit and let that happen. The only way you can do that is by agreeing in the operating agreement, in defining in board resolutions, we're going to buy this insurance. It's going to be for this much money based on this valuation. We've decided this. And then having the president or the manager go and buy the insurance, and everybody knows what the deal is. That's so critically important to have of the rules of engagement in your operating agreement. And then in your buy-sell agreement, you're almost always going to use insurance to buy somebody out. You can come up with new ways. Insurance, in my opinion, is the easiest way to be able to satisfy a buyout of a deceased member when they unexpectedly pass, or expectedly. You have a system already. Their family's made whole. The company management stays intact. Nothing weird happens. The company survives that individual. One, if you don't have an operating agreement or bylaws, you need those. Two, if you have more than one owner, you need to have thought about the rules of engagement of how do we play with each other, including in difficult times, in times of litigation, criminal activity, business failure, death, all these circumstances, and you organize the general themes in the operating agreement or bylaws, and then as appropriate, you buy Keyman Insurance to help facilitate any kind of corporate buyout, but it's all in the documents. So that if there's a disagreement, if there's a challenge, if there's a battle, if there's a dissolution, whatever, the rules of engagement are all there. Everyone's agreed on them. There's no reason to battle it out in court because we already have a path that's laid out and agreed upon, that then we use that path to satisfy our moving forward despite whatever challenge just happened to us. Operating agreement, critically important. It is the rules of the road. It is what the courts are going to expect of you. It is what an auditor is going to have expected of you. And it is how you deal with challenges along the way so that you don't have to battle them out in real time. You already had a plan. Sure, it takes a few more minutes or hours or days at the beginning, but once you have it in place, you can, to some extent, set it and forget it unless the rules change. New owners come in, investors come in, somebody wants to be bought out, whatever. That's when you would satisfy the needs that were already written in the buy-sell agreement or in the operating agreement. And as new variables come to play, you can rewrite the operating agreement. But folks, this is critically important. It's the difference between success, failure, life, death. A lot of times in a business is not fighting over these things as people all of a sudden want to, claim something new. If it's already written down, you have a path forward. It's way easier to spend the time up front getting it right than fighting over it and having to go through legal action to negotiate it down the road when there's more to lose. Make it a priority. Make sure you have one. If you don't have one, go to your lawyer. Maybe go to your CPA. You can certainly write to me, Aaron Young at Laughlin USA, and we'll make sure we get you squared away with that. In the meantime, make sure that if you're liking this content, if you're enjoying these episodes, write a review, rate the podcast, communicate and share the information. So we get this information out to lots of people. It'll help in the algorithms. It'll also help me know what you like and don't like and what people are saying as they review the show. So do that. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you next time as we work to magnify your wealth.